Well, hi everybody again, and welcome to Coffee with Craig. This is where we talk about all things spiritual, we talk about the psychic world, we talk about the afterlife, and we talk about what may be happening in the world. Now, today I'm going to be talking to you about a bit about first about Iran and what's happening there, because I know that's important to our visitors at the moment, and it's something I've spoken about before. But also, we'll be looking into some more revelations that have come through what we call the Naadi oracles in India. And in the second part of this show, I'll be doing an interview to talk about some of the latest revelations that have come through the Nadi with some of our patrons. We'll be there to ask questions as well. Anyway, so welcome to Coffee with Craig. Well, welcome to the show again. I hope you all had a nice new year, and happy new year to you all. And thank you for the supporting the channel over the year. Now, if you're here for the first time, don't forget to give us a follow and click that little bell so you get notifications, because as you'll find today, quite often these programs follow on from one another as we get more details about predictions that are made on the show. And if you're here ultimately hundreds of times, please always give us a thumbs up, because it always helps that dreaded algorithm to help us to stay up in the rankings. Oh, well, we've got an interesting show to you for today, split into two bits, really. I first want to talk about Iran and what's happening in Iran, and just reaffirm some of the things I've already said, really. It's just to give you an idea, because this show's been going quite a long time, as you know, and some of the things I've already addressed Iran, and it looks like what I've been talking about is happening. And then later in the show, we're also going to be talked to Vinita Pande again, and I've got some of the patrons on board to also ask some questions to dive a bit deeper into some of these remarkable predictions that are being made by the Nadi oracles. And some of the things that it's saying about the future. These are things that are just being revealed now after thousands of years. The Nadi's a bit like the, I suppose you could call it a bit like the Indian equivalent of Nostradamus, except there's a whole group of seers that wrote this stuff. So we'll talk about that in a moment. But first, let me just talk a little bit about Iran. And strangely enough, I was dreaming about it last night, a very vivid dream, actually. But first, let me just tell you a few of the things I've already kind of predicted about this, so that you're aware of some of the things that I said in some of my other videos. There's a big video out there about Iran in which I talk about the an upcoming Iranian revolution. And there's another video where I specifically talk about the Shah of Iran, or the son of the Shah of Iran, returning not as a ruler, but as a figure to help unify Iran after its revolution. Now, if you follow the show, you'll also know that I've spoke a lot about an American strike on Iran, which happened, of course, with the bunker strike. That's talking this a long way back, way before it was in the news. And said that that would happen, and it has happened. Now, I did also say, and you look back through my predictions over the years here, I did also say that after the Iranian nuclear facilities had been hit, Iran would experience a period of economic decline and disruption, a disruption to the food resources and the water resources in Iran, which is happening. And this would cause public unrest, and there would be another like the women's movement, where they clamp down on the women arguing about having to wear the hijabs and all the rest of it, and that would escalate again and burst into life again. And we do seem to be seeing that happening in the news at the moment. So I did feel there would be a wider escalation in the Iran crisis. It would also affect other wars around the world and things like this. I said about the drones to being supplied to Russia and so forth, and Russia trying to get involved in the background here. So we may see something with Russian involvement here, not necessarily military, but certainly in terms of support, I suppose. And there may be some, I think there'd be some disruptions to cyberspace with this coming up in the immediate future. I said that there would be a, I'm just looking at my notes now, because I just looked at the transcript of that last video that I did, the one I'm talking about. Go and have a look at it. I'll see if I can post it up in the comments, the drop downs, and I'll put it at the end of the video as a link, this video as a link to my Iranian predictions. But I did see a very positive long-term future for Iran coming out of this. It's going to be difficult immediately. In my previous predictions, I said that there would be the possibility of an American shipping being hit. I saw something like an attack on an American military ship, something like an aircraft carrier or something like that. Perhaps there's going to be sort of backlashes going on from the last of the people that want to keep the Iranian Revolution as an aggressive force towards America and other parts of the world going while this happens. So, but I do see a very positive long-term future. But short-term, I think there's going to be some really serious problems from this. I saw a well, let me tell you a dream. You see, last night I was dreaming that I was in a car with terrorists, and I was talking to the guy with me. And the guy with me was an Iranian that was a terrorist who told me in the dream that his children had been killed by the infidels, and that he intended to kill the children of others. And I was trying to talk to him in the dream, saying this isn't the right thing to do. And he was putting the fuses into car bombs. So first and foremost, does that mean my dream is a prophecy of upcoming car bombs? Now, these car bombs may not necessarily be in Iran. They might be anywhere. They might be part of, like, I feel like the last kicks of resistance from the Iranian extremists against the West. So could we see something like that happening? And I had a feeling that the person that was making these bombs might have second thoughts about it, was thinking, is this right? Is this wrong? That's like in the dream, I was acting like his conscience. He was a big man, a strong man, quite a very, very well-built, strong person in the dream. And he was given a name, and his name, they called him Had, right? Al-Had, I think it was. I don't know if that's a nickname you use in Iran. And Al-Had, he in the dream, he had been responsible for working with halal foods and things like this, and he'd done that in his main life. I was quite a religious man in that respect too, about the the purity of the food from his standpoint of what he felt they should have. So my thoughts were, who is this guy? Is somebody watching this right now who might be part of a terrorist group called Had, and those things fit with you, Had? If so, the message in the dream was, in the dream, he said, I am doing God's will. And in the dream, we said, but it's also God's will to stop. God's will either way, whether you do this type of terrorism or you don't do this type of terrorism, is God's will. So you have will too. And that was the kind of the thread of the dream, which was very strange, but I felt I ought to put that out there in case somebody like that is listening, and it might save some lives. That's my thought. So I'm sounding more and more bonkers as we go on with this, aren't I? But in Iran, there's going to be a major overturning of the regime. It's happening. We're seeing it happening. It will happen. And I feel that eventually the Shah's son will return. Reza Pahlavi, isn't it? It will return, not as a leader, not as but as a figurehead. It's almost like symbolic of the fact that everything has changed so much that we can even bring the Shah's son here safely, and many people were pleased at this. Symbolic, I think. And there were all sorts of unusual flags waving in the dream, in the visions, and what I said before in my previous predictions. And we talked about that, about seeing these yellow and red flags that seem to be flying across Iran. So I suggest you go and have a look at my other predictions about Iran. And ultimately, because of this, I said that the longer term future of Iran will be bright, because Iran will modernize and Iran will join part of the Abraham Accord. And it will, I saw a picture where Iran enters a very modern age, uses its oil and its wealth to build technology and culture, and becomes a major thriving country, benefiting the whole region. But there may be interference beforehand. There's going to be difficulties beforehand. I think America may get involved, and there might be some military involvement here. Trump's already speaking about that sort of thing as we speak. I'm recording this on the 2nd of January 2026. So you may see it a bit later. So some things may have already transpired by the time I say this. But I'm seeing a sort of involvement with the Americans, and limited, perhaps some clandestine, secret involvement with Israel. But Israel doesn't need to bother, because I think the Iranian people will do the job. I feel that there's a whole new flag there, as it were. And I see it as a very optimistic thing for the Iranian people and for the future of peace in the Middle East. Right. Okay. I wanted to say that first before we start the show today, because those of you who have come to the show before will know that I've spoken about some of the Naadi oracles. Now, if you've read my book, Messages from the Universe, you will understand, hopefully read it, go and read it, please. I talk about how it completely changed my life. And this is going back some time now, before the Nadis were ever known about in the West. And myself and a few others like Dr. Q and Kim Pasol and other people have kind of started to introduce the idea of the Naadi oracles to the West. Now, they're written on palm leaves from centuries ago, thousands of years ago. And when you access this palm leaf, it's like a slat of paper. It's the way they wrote their books in the past, like little rulers in a way. On one of the leaves, it will be your leaf and tell you something about yourself. And it has your name written on it, remarkably. And in my case, it had my name, my Christian name and my surname, had my ex-wife's name, had my wife's name, had my mother's name, and also said her nickname that she preferred to call herself. All information that you could never possibly know about. Even gave me my date of birth, to the exact moment and time of my birth. And yet, this is, when I did it, it was before the days of the much information on the internet at all. The internet was running, but it was early days, and information in there that nobody could possibly look up about you. Absolutely no way. And I did it completely with a false email address and false Zoom and false contact details. It didn't know my real name. Anyway, when we access these leaves, it tells you about your future and tells you about your life and gives you advice, tells you pujas and charitable things you can do to help reverse the negative karma in your life. But there are also other leaves, other versions and other systems. Sometimes things about the future will come up in a person's leaf and we can compare notes. In mine, there was a very particular one about warning the world about certain volcanic activities, or we think they are dust or clouds or something that's going to affect the world, which has been a mystery to me. And I put it in the book about this. But those things seem to be being pointed out about now, in other people's leaves, but also in other Nadis that we can consult, that can tell us answers to specific questions, specific questions, right? So sometimes these questions we can write down. We don't even tell the reader what the questions are, and they just give the answers. Now, I'm going to look into this a bit more. I've already put an earlier video up about this, but we're going to dive a bit deeper now with Vinita Pande, and she's been an expert on the Nadis. She's been studying this for quite some years. She's got a great knowledge of it. She's been investigating different Nadis all over India, reminding us always that 98% of Naadi readers are complete fakes. So it's hard to track down the real ones. So don't go getting your Nadis ready. Someone approach you at the airport, because they will do that in India, and it's nonsense. It's nonsense. You know, you've got to find the right ones. You've got to know your sources. You've got to be able to check them very carefully, your results. But we're going to have a chat about that today. And I've also got with me some of the patrons who I invite on from Zoom. So if you're a patron, you can apply to come on the show. You're prepared to have a chat and you're prepared to ask questions. You don't mind your face being shown. You can come on the show with us on this show. So let me move over to Zoom now and introduce you to Vinita and the gang ready to have a chat. Okay, let's find out some more about the Nadis. So I know that a lot of the people who have come to the channel have already seen some of your predictions that have been given to us through the Naadi, Vinita, and it's quite interesting what it's saying. And like I did with my Nadis, and I think it's always a good thing if you are seeing a Nadi, or even you're seeing a psychic or a medium, it's often good to get confirmation through another medium or another psychic, and in this case through another Nadi. So I know that's a special technique that the Nadis will use if we have questions, particularly questions about imminent issues in a person's life. They might be legal things or financial things or some crisis thing, but you can even ask about issues in the world.
So again, hello everyone. Hi Craig, this is nice to be back on your show. Yes, in the Nadis, most people only know about the general kandam. So they have a reading and they think that's what the Nadi is, but that's not what the Nadi is. Nadi is really a book, and the first chapter is a summary, and most people have a reading of that first chapter, which is a summary of all the other chapters, right? And Nadi is based on Vedic Jyotish astrology. And in Jyotish, in Vedic astrology, there are 12 houses for the 12 constellations, for the 12 constellation signs, right? From Aries to Pisces. And each house in your chart is a different topic. So there will be a chapter on each topic of your life in the Nadi. And then there are special chapters, like there's a Gyan Kand for those who are spiritual and they want to know about their spiritual life and guidance and things like that. There is something called a Gyan Kand. And then there are many other special chapters. One of them is called the Prashna Kandam, which is a Q&A chapter. So the way that works is that you think of 5 topics that you want to ask questions on, and you write down the date and time in Indian Standard Time that you write down those 5 questions. And you send it over to the Nadi reader. And the Nadi reader will go through, he has to have done your Nadi reading first. So he knows your thumb impression, your name, your certain things about you, right? Your ID, sort of your name, your date of birth and such. Then he uses those key fields, plus he uses the date and time that you asked the question, and he goes through all the leaves in the related to your category in the bundle, going leaf by leaf to see if on this date and time were there answers pre-recorded. So I want to back up and have people think about this for a minute, that thousands of years ago, the sages knew that Vinita, with this ID, will ask these 5 questions, like which I asked on December 15th at 9 a.m. India time. And even though I write down the questions, the answers are pre-written. And they know the sequence in which I will ask those questions. So I might think it's random, but it's really not. I mean, it depends how you look at it. I don't really know the mystery around this and how this happens, but the answers are pre-written. And so I've asked many, many prashnas over the last 1.5 years. And for this particular one that we can go into, I had 5 questions that I wrote down, and I can go over that, Craig, if you like
Yeah, I was
now.
going to say just one interesting thing I would like to raise there. I mean, I know that sometimes with the Prashna Kandam, that often you can put the question without the actual Nadi reader knowing the question, so that it would give the answers without you reading out or sending them the question. I don't know, not all the Nadis do that, but I know some of them do it. Like just like when they don't know who you are, your name or anything when you first go to see them. Although they have obviously your main Kandam, your main first chapter um, there. Did you actually ask them the question, i.e., what's going to happen with this or that, or was it a blank? This is answer to question one. This is answer to question two. I know that sometimes they do that, and just
Yeah. So the protocol for the Prashna Kandam is yes, you have to write down the questions, but I think you're referring to the Jeev Nadi, which are the live nadis, and it's a completely separate topic because this is divinations where it's a blank leaf and the answers appear on the leaf. For
okay. So
that, you
it's the
don't
Jiva
need
that does
to,
that. Okay, yeah.
yes. So you don't have to send in any date and time
Hmm.
or the question. They don't have to have read your nadi. You can literally just walk in and start asking questions. But that is in the Jivanadi.
Certainly a lot to get your head round for most people, isn't it? Here we are, like you said, someone's written down the answers, knowing you're going to ask that question thousands of years ago. I mean, the Nadis, my head always comes out spinning and amazing. So, what was the what were the questions, and what were some of the answers, and how did they differ between the three different sources? That's obviously what's going to be interesting here, isn't it? See how they
Yes,
correlate, and is there anything they're saying very similar?
yes. But before that, I have a surprise for everyone. So this is my Prashna Kandam leaf from something I asked earlier in the year. And it might fuzz out at some point, but somewhere in here is my name as well. And this is very, very minute, if you can see. And this leaf is probably 350 to 500 years old. And because see, I have it, they gave it to me like this. But if I take out the rubber bands and if I flip it over, both sides were written for me. And I haven't done the carbon dating for this, but it's probably about 350 to 500 years old. So I just wanted to show you that the Prashna Khan will have my name written on it. And I've actually verified it because he circled it on the photo that he took and he told me, here's your name, and I verified it. And, some people who can understand this old script can actually read out some of the stuff and they can tell me that, yes, this is what is written on the leaf. So going back to this, what happened was I kind of did. I'm a very inquisitive person, so I did this sort of uh, 5 questions with 4 Nadi readers thing, and because I like to verify, and the interesting thing is that I like to see if the sages know that I'm going across Nadi readers as well. So there are 5 questions that I asked, and here are the 5 questions that I asked. It was on December 15th, 6 a.m. Indian Standard Time. The first question that I asked was about Kali Yuga, and the Kalki Avatar. Kali Yuga is the last epo in the 4 epos of the Vedic tradition, which is the dark age that we are supposed to be in. And Kalki avatar is the last of the 10 avatars of Vishnu. Vishnu is a archetype, like there's 3 of them, Brahma, Vishnu, and Mahesh. And he's one of the main sort of beings, supreme beings that preserves the universe. And so that's why he takes avatars whenever there is more, injustice and falsehood and things like that. So some of you might have heard of Krishna, but Kalki is supposed to incarnate in Kali Yuga. So I said that there's a lot of confusion as to when Kali Yuga started. Can Shiva please reveal how many years ago did Kali Yuga start and when is it ending? And are we in a transition phase at this point between yugas? And will I see Kalki avatar in my lifetime? Who is Kalki avatar? And will there be these Ansh avatars, which is semi or sub, like a smaller version of avatars are called Ansh avatars. The second question that I asked was about 2026 predictions. And I asked that Shiva has told me that there will be many wars and calamities in the coming years. Can Mahadev tell me what should I expect this year, 2026, related to which elements in nature and in which countries? Will wars increase this year or will it be from 2027? The third question was about the rishis and siddhas, and I asked them if they would come back to human form in my lifetime, if people will recognize them. Will they be born or will they awaken inside people? Will many people attain liberation or moksha and the light body? And I asked, what about me? And then the fourth one, which is, I think, groundbreaking, which I don't think anyone has ever asked before from the Nadis, is are there aliens and beings that come to the planet? Do governments know about this? Will aliens become visible to people? And will the governments disclose information related to them? And are we using some of the alien technology? And the fifth question was a personal question. It was about me doing spiritual coaching and if I should do it and what should I,
Well,
teach people.
you've covered
So,
a hell of a lot there. I mean, we've got us all on the edge of our seats now, I'm sure.
okay. So I'll go quickly because it's a lot of I'm condensing about more than 2 hours of Nadi readings into a very short time. So I'll paraphrase somewhere and I'll stick to the more important topics, and then you can ask me, tell me more about this or that. So I basically I assimilated the answers by topic because three of these Nadi readers has come back to me. The fourth one was supposed to do the reading yesterday, but unfortunately he's out of town, so he said he'll do it on Monday. But I did get three answers for every question. So the answer to the first question about Kali Yuga and Kalki, I want to summarize this here because there's a lot of philosophical discussion and there was a lot of knowledge for me about yugas, and it's not like a calendar date and time. It's sort of more natural. It phases in and it phases out. And it told me that, people have all these theories about when Kali Yuga started, but there is no the humans do not know when Kali Yuga started, nor do they know when it will end. But we are sort of in the second half of Kali Yuga, and Kalki Avatar will not come in my lifetime, even though they said that I will come to know who he is, when he'll come, but I will not see him in this lifetime. So that was sort of the same theme across all the three nadis. Some were much deeper and some were more brief, but basically that was it, that was the answer in a nutshell. I'll go to the 2026 predictions because this is more imminent and important and of more interest to most viewers. So the first Nadi said that this is with Nanduji in Delhi, and this was read, I think, the 21st of December. It said that the US will have an indirect war with the Europeans. So indirect could be like trade war, it could be a dispute, it could be some, we saw some immigration type of things, some visas were refused and things, but it will be indirect war with the Europeans, which includes England and the continent. Then it refers to a war with people of another religion. So it's saying that basically people of two religions, and it said that even your country is involved in this war, and there's people of another religion where these people are already suffered from war. They have been devastated, they don't have food, they don't have homes left, and in that area there will be an escalation here followed by great loss. And I believe this is referring to the Middle East, and it's really Israel and US from the back end, supporting Israel and this war with Gaza, where they don't have food and they don't have homes left. But it said that there will be, it will expand and escalate in that region. That war will expand and escalate from this year. And this must, so I said this must be Israel. And it's between really the Jews, Christians, and the Muslims in the Middle East. It said we cannot stop the war. There's always been war on the planet, but we can do prayers. We can pray and we can do pujas to lessen the effect and suffering. And especially it told me that you must pray for these people who are suffering. And then Shiva gives a very clear and precise answer about a huge undersea volcanic eruption pointing to April 15th to May 15th, 2026 as the timing. This will cause a large amount of damage and loss to life from both this natural calamity and also war. And that this country, the country that will be affected the most, will be the country whose ruler is trying to regain ancient land that it has lost. He wants to be like a past ruler of this country. So initially I thought maybe it's China, but it's most probably it's more like Russia. But I want to add here that what I did is, this is from Nanduji in Delhi. I know another Nadi reader. His name is Ravi, and he's in Tamil Nadu, in another area. And he has an office in Japan, a Nadi office in Japan, and he has thousands of Russian clients. So I went to him and I called him and I said, you're doing all these readings. Have you read of calamities in the Japanese people's nadis and the Russian clients' nadis? And he said, yes. He confirmed that in both the Japanese nadis and in the Russian nadis, there is a mention of not everyone's nadis, but some people's nadis, especially those who are spiritual. There will be a huge calamity in 2026. It didn't say which month, but it mentioned huge calamity in 2026. Most probably because they'll be affected. So this is not just Russia. Obviously, if something like that big happens, the entire region, including China, would be affected. See, I don't have any people I know from China, and nor, because a lot of people contact me for the Nadi readings. I would love to hear from anyone in China or Taiwan who's listening to this to contact me to get their Nadi read, so that we can get more insight into the extent of how many people would be affected. But I did have that verification, and Ravi, this Nadi reader, had no clue that my Nadi has just been read from Nanduji about this calamity. So that's one big prediction for 2026. And usually the Nadi does not mention something that specific. Never. I mean, it's very rare. So it's really, it's also told me that I have to do pujas and I have to pray. It's my duty. So as to reduce the number of deaths and to lessen the suffering. And it also told me that, you should tell other people about this, and other people should also pray, and that their prayers will be heard. So that's why I wanted to put this out, to ask people to pray, because we don't want loss of life. Even though karmically this has to happen, we want to lessen the effect of the suffering. So that was in the Nanduji's Nadi, an answer for my predictions for 2026. Now, the second Nadi was by a very old Nadi family in Vaitishwaran Kovil. They are one of the original families of Nadi, and they have done Nadi readings for very famous people. And it talked about, which I think Craig has already read out in his previous video, so I'll go through this quickly, but it talked about a lot of ruinations in the world due to natural calamities, wars, ammunitions, armaments, drought, disease, and many other ways. In the name of religion, narrow racism and nationalism, riots may break out in many parts of the world. Leaving fraternity, people will kill each other ruthlessly, saying that they are fighting and dying for their people. During the next year, after February 15th, advanced scientific terrorism may cause heavy damages to the world. Constructive communication services will become destructive and poisonous. So, to me, this indicates some sort of cyber warfare and internet virus of a large extent. Because again, you see, the previous passage was more general, but this is a very specific prediction. And so and usually if it says after February 15th, it's not like February 15th to December 31st. Usually it's soon after, like within 2 weeks or so, right? That's again a Jyotish sort of thing. It's usually like a full moon to no moon or no moon to full moon. It's usually like a 2 week window. So I'm guessing between February 15th to March 1st, something like that. Something might happen. I could be wrong, but this is my guess. So again, this is a very specific prediction. And again, I would suggest to people, because somewhere I feel that, I actually meditated on this. Somewhere I feel that even banks would shut down. And so it'd be good to have some cash at home and definitely back up your laptop and your phone. So, I mean, even if nothing happens, these things won't harm you. Okay, so this is why I'm going fast because there's a lot more. Now, the third Nadi was very general. This is Ravi Guruji's Nadi reading, and it was about, many nations will go to war, and it talked about there will be war in Asia and in India's neighborhood as well, and in European nations as well. So again, it's very general. So it's talking about Asia, India, the neighborhood of India, and Europe. And it didn't give me more details than that. So that is the answer to my second question. So I'll just pause here. And if anyone wants any clarification before I move on to the next one.
Okay, well, some interesting stuff there. First and foremost, so much of it's corresponded what I've said in my predictions as well. Personally, in particular, the one that was in the Nadi that I was given, it must be 10, 15 years ago now, 10 years ago at least, when I published my book. I can't remember, time flies, but I was told I would be warning the world about a gigantic gas cloud, which I think is what most of the people in Pompeii died from the gas rather than the lava, for example. And so that's what we're doing here, because people are beginning to hear of this, and this might pick up and people might start hearing this elsewhere about this. It might be worth exploring that in a complete video on its own for that sometimes, particularly if we get some more information on that. Interesting, it should be Russia. I was thinking it was China, but perhaps, and I was thinking it could be undersea as well. Was it any reference to sea or land?
No, it did specifically say undersea volcano.
Okay.
It didn't mention the country, but it said a ruler who's trying to get ancient land that it's gone away from its country is trying to get that land back. And
Taiwan?
It could be. Actually,
Japan?
my first instinct was China, actually.
Yeah.
Myself, I thought it was China. So, I mean, China, Russia, if it's so huge, it'll affect both countries. So, we can guess what country it is.
And also I was talking about on the show as well about the financial crash and warning people about there's going to be a financial problems. We've actually got the dates here now, haven't we? Between the 15th of February and 1st of May. I mean, and that's really important. I think that we start to think carefully about, like you say, get some cash, perhaps.
Yeah, it's talking. The other Nadi was talking specifically about what sounds like cyber warfare. So it would be. It said it said the word terrorism, and it said that it would be advanced scientific terrorism, which will cause heavy damages to the world. So when I hear words like this, that means it's pretty widespread to the world. It did not say a country. Constructive communication services. So again, obviously, this is the internet. Will become destructive and poisonous. That sounds like a virus to me.
Or it could be
And
AI, couldn't it? Because nobody's AI is so new, nobody's let it loose on the financial markets to do something destructive. So it could be AI, couldn't it?
it could be, but again, it's something that would be quite big. And I think that this would be between February 15th and March 1st, about in that 2 week window. And we can't really do much about it except for taking precautions. I want to just emphasize that the Nadis are not deterministic. They are probabilistic predictions. So it's not written in stone. So these things may not happen. So this is just a disclaimer. But something which is so soon, like, in the immediate future or in the near future, the probability is much higher.
Yes, that's often been the case in personal nadis too. The things that you're told that are going to happen tomorrow happen exactly as you're told. Things that might be 10, 15 years down the line, they start to change. And that's why sometimes when you consult other nadis as well, they clarify the way things are moving. Let's open it up if anybody's got any questions at this stage that we can just raise, or comments that if any of our patrons here want to ask anything, just wave your hand or something. Elise? Yeah.
Yeah, Vanessa, I have a question. It's really about the Nadi. The Prashna chapter, it's a separate chapter, right? Outside the 12 chapters.
Yes, it is.
Right, right, okay.
Yes, and each chapter is a separate bundle.
Yeah, okay. I just wanted to clarify that.
Yeah, the
Yes.
12 chapters are very interesting because they will tell you very
Very.
specifically. There's even one chapter there called Incurable Illnesses on one nada, I was told. And so it tells you, and there'll be one on legal, and they'll put things together like eyesight and legal and something else. I'm not sure quite how they run now, but all sorts of odd things are bunched together. Yeah. Any other questions before we move on and on it? Okay. Right. How else did we get on then, Vanessa? There were some other
Okay.
questions there, of course.
Yeah, so we've gotten to the second question. Now, the third question, again, I will paraphrase because this was about, will the rishis and siddhas return? Will we see them? And will many people attain liberation in my lifetime, in my, this age that we're in? So there was some very fascinating information. Um, I don't know if you have time to get into this, but this was, I was given some really very rare knowledge on this, and it was related to how these different ancient temples are portals to different star systems and different planets. And the siddhas, the rishis who uh, took samadhi, which is where, they basically they disappear. I talked about the light body, but essentially, they don't leave a body behind on the planet. They transform into light and they disappear when they leave the planet. So wherever they have taken the samadhi, this jiva samadhi, they have basically gone to that star or that planet which is associated with that temple. That's it briefly. I don't want to get too much into that because it sounds very out there, but it was more knowledge, I think, for me than perhaps for other people. But a lot in all of these nadis, I get so much knowledge that it's hard to assimilate all this stuff because I also in the Prashnakan, Shiva actually told me the meaning of Om in one of the answers, which is again very rare to go into such deep philosophical topics in the Prashnakan. Um, but essentially, in answer to my second question, I'll just summarize because there was lots of knowledge for me specifically. It said that no, the siddhas and rishis will not return to human form, and all the three nadis complied with the same answer. That they do come and go, but they don't come and go in physical bodies. They may manifest very temporarily to give a visitation to somebody who is they need to talk to or give a message to, but they will not come back in human form for an extended period of time. But it did say to me that in this age, a lot of people are going to attain liberation. And what it said is that it is because a lot of souls want to finish their karmas at this point and do not want to return in the Kali Yuga, because there's just too much suffering and there's too much negativity on the planet. So that is something that I wanted to get out there to the public and say, this is a very special time that we're living in, that a lot of people will attain liberation. Now, the very fascinating question was about aliens. And, one of the Naadi enthusiasts messaged me and he says, "You're very brave to ask such profound questions from the Naadi." And because, most people don't dare ask some of these really crazy questions. And, for me, the Supreme is like my father, my parents, and it's like a child who's very curious, who keeps saying, why, why? If they feel I'm not old enough to know the answer, they won't tell me. But why not ask, right? Because I asked from a pure heart. So I got some very astounding information back. So the first Nadi did say, yes, there are many beings who come and go to the planet, but basically that's where it ended. It didn't go into too much detail. The second one, which is from this old Nadi family in Vatish and Koval, I'll read this out to you, and I think, again, Craig has read this out in the previous video, is many beings and aliens have been coming and going. As they are far more advanced in their technology, their movements cannot be caught immediately by the technical equipments of human beings on the Earth. Satellites which are roaming above the Earth are not capable of capturing the images and movements on the Earth. They move as fast as the speed of light, and the technology of the Earth is too small, too tiny to even understand who the aliens are. No government would accept and announce this truth, as they are totally frightened and ashamed of this truth. So people on the Earth are unable to use their technology because these aliens are far more advanced. And these aliens will not ever reveal even a little bit of their technology to humans. Now, the third Nadi also said the same thing along the same lines, but added even more information to it. And it said, there will be many wonders and miracles in the future related to knowledge about other planets. Some things the governments will disclose, and in my lifetime, and some will be kept secret. There are beings on other planets which will come to be known in the future, again, in my lifetime. Things which we can't and don't know today with modern technology and methods will be revealed in the future. So many wondrous things are coming, and many secrets will come out. There will come a time where it is possible for humans to go and live on other planets. There will come a time. So this is probably not in my lifetime. There will be a change in the universe that we see. And in the future, souls will take birth on other planets in our solar system. So that was, that was the answer from the third Nadi, which is from Ravi Guruji. So that is what I wanted to cover, Craig, in this show, because the fifth answer is really a personal question about my spiritual coaching.
Okay, well, a little bit light on stuff, wasn't it? Not much, not much in there. But yeah, fascinating. I mean, each one of those things is massive for exploration. I mean, for example, I found the whole idea of the Indian temples as being portals to other stars really. Very interesting. I've always felt that's the case with the pyramids, for example, as being part of that ancient tradition as well, and maybe other places as opposed to just the Indian temples. But they were obviously conscious, because each temple you go to in India, it always has some connection with astrological layout and sacred geometry and other things, and even places like Arunachala, which I know you've been to as well. That just blew my mind to pieces. I did some Kriya there and open myself up and just see what would happen, and my God, it knocks you flat. So these things and have elements to them. That was a fire element to that one, and or similarly where places have the water element and so forth. You know when you're intuitive, you know when you're spiritually open, that these things are astonishing. And it's like the Nadis now are kind of saying, okay, you've all had to wait a long time, and now we're starting to reveal some of the information about what we are capable of as human beings. Interesting also, the ideas about enlightenment and the coming of awakening of people. I mean, I've always felt that we are coming into a better age, because it will be an age of awakening. It's the awakening that's the important thing. It's nothing to do with, having lots of food and lots of money and lots of holidays and the rest of it. It's about, if we become spiritual beings, that's the true happiness. And so much else there too. And of course, the alien question, I think, is interesting, because so many people, I've known people where their nadis have said about other planets and about other ages and about the times before earlier human history, and Kamari Kandam, for example, is often mentioned in there, and the return of the lost knowledge when the places sank and things like that, and all written on leaves in a physical form. 500-year dating would be interesting. We'll have to raise some funds to get those dated for you. Actually, might be a good one. We could do a GoFundMe for that to get the leaves dated. Might be an idea. So much. I mean, we can make programs out of every single one, I think, as well, because it's such an interesting topic. Any comments from anybody like to raise here? Elise, again, it looks like you're
Yeah, I've got a comment. You see, the Nadi always prescribes remedies, right? And it's interesting, that thing about portal to the stars and the galaxy systems. That's very interesting, because the remedies are the most important part of a Nadi reading for most people. And there's something special that happens, because I've had Nadi readings, that when you go to those temples and in the order it's prescribed, your karma changes. And you notice it maybe not immediately, but as it unfolds, pretty much closer to the time that you do the reading. So that's a very interesting detail for me, because the question is always, what is the miracle of having your visiting these temples and then having your life transformed? Maybe that's part of an answer, that it's actually linked to forces and energies in the universe that are greater than us. It's very arrogant to think that we're very large in the universe, because we're very small. We're influenced by that, not the other way around, which I think humanity needs to shift that a bit sometimes.
Yes. Yeah. One other piece of information that I'll add to this, about the Siddhas, it actually has given me a few temples where it's told me to go, and told me that there are a lot of the Siddhas still in their light body, which I may have the grace to see them. So it's told me certain temples to go to. And you're right. You've been very happy that you picked up on this point, that these are not temples where you go just for the sake of a ritual or dogma. These are really big energy centers. And like Craig mentioned, when he went to Arunachalam, he had a spiritual experience. I have just returned from a pilgrimage in India, and I've written a couple of blogs. If you can read those blogs, you'll understand the phenomenal spiritual experience that I've had in a couple of these temples. Is crazy. It's really, the amount of energy there is really wild.
Yeah, well, I'll put all that in the description for any links you like. I'm going to put your your YouTube channel, so people can come and hear from other stuff from you as well, of course. And I'll put that link to that if you like as well. And I think it's a really important point, Elise, isn't it, that we do something to help mitigate the negative effects of negative karma, as they say.
Absolutely.
Interestingly, again, when I looked to my early nadis, again, I was having a thumb through of them, and it says you will arrange yagnas, it called it in this particular nadi, or fire ceremonies, we might call them, or homas, I might call it, to help the world. And at the time, I had that was my first ever nadi, when I was completely blown away, because at that time, I was nobody knew what the nadis were, because there was nothing on the internet, nothing about it anywhere I could find at that time. And it said that I'd be so involved that I'd do that. I can see, Vinita, that we can be sort of organizing maybe some of these pujas somehow, because the people that follow this channel, although you get a lot of people, or curiosity seekers and things, there's a lot of very dedicated followers to this channel. They're very interested in doing something good in the world and trying to help the world out there. So, and beginning to understand the reality of this type of thing. It's not, because I always thought, doing a few pujas and rituals and smoke and all the rest of it, and you think, how on earth does that change my life? And then when you go to a sacred, like the one, for example, at the base of the temple at the base of Mount Aranchana, I did the rituals there, and it was just like mind-boggling, the power of the mountains taking you over. But this is nothing to do with a few chants and things like that. Something is happening on a soul level that is very hard to describe to people. It's very hard to describe. I mean, I was fortunate. I had the cameraman with me, and I did Mystic Journey to India, which is now on Prime, actually. So people want to see my reactions to that. But that was not for the cameras. That was wiped away, just wiped away by it. So we can do things, and particularly when we do it in alignment with astrology, and we do it in alignment with the correct place, and we do it at the right time, and miraculous things can happen. And I think collectively, when many minds come together, the sum is greater than the parts. We can develop a very, very powerful spiritual energy between us, I think. Unless I'm getting carried away with things. But hopefully we can do something like that later on too. So any other questions anybody wants? Elizabeth, you were wanting to ask something too, yeah? Go on.
Yeah, this is about the Naadi. I had no idea what Naadi was until you started bringing it up. But my big question is, I hear bits and pieces about all these countries all over the world. And of course, the U.S. is included in that. But I'm just wondering why U.S. does not have the same calamities and war like everybody else does. Because of course, we got corruption just like everywhere else. But I haven't heard the Naadi say anything about our country falling apart. Like I can go to the store and not worry about getting shot. Our life is still pretty much normal here. It's not like the UK where immigration is completely out of control. So are my thoughts safe to thinking that will never happen in the US? Or is there a specific reason why it doesn't?
No, so I think I covered, Craig, did we have a session? We did, about predictions till 2030.
Yes,
so,
we did the 2020, yes, till 2030 we've done, yes.
Yeah. So contrary to that, Elizabeth, actually, there will be huge problems in US in the coming years. I don't know the specific calamity that would happen or the specific war that would happen. And it indicated more of a non-kinetic, what I mean is non-conventional war, because there could be a bioweapon, like a virus that will be released that will affect people, because that's come in dozens of nadis, because I've helped like hundreds of people in the US. Then there will be another calamity that would be related to air. I'm forgetting air, fire, and water, I believe. I'll have to go back and check. I don't want to misquote.
There was one that ether wasn't in it, and there was one other element wasn't in it. It was
Earth was.
It's on the other video.
Not.
People can see that.
Yeah, it's. I'll have to go back and check my notes, but usually it talks about which elements will be involved. There are 5 elements, and I was actually told that in 2028, about 2028 or so, that I should go and buy a piece of land and do organic farming because there won't be enough food for one meal a day for many people. Why? I don't know. It said some parts of your country will be severely affected. By what? I don't know. But it would be something really, really big coming that would affect the US.
Yeah, and also similarly, I was told to create this spiritual center Jane and I are trying to do as part of this new world change that's happening. Because out of it, we're going to see a lot of calamities and a lot of problems. But my can dams, and particularly the Guiana can dam, I access, and I think I've got the word right, knowledge can dam. Guyana, I always pronounce it wrong. Sorry. My Guyana can dam said that there would be a world awakening, and that you'll be able to help with this, and you'll be a help by having these centres, which to me at the time is completely crackpot again. How was I ever to do something like this and doing these yagnas and things like this, and you'll be speaking to thousands of people. And I thought, how can I speak to thousands of people? And here we are doing it because people up to 100,000 people watch this channel sometimes. So I think the spiritual work that comes out of this is going to be vitally important, particularly as the Naadi has also said there, that there's a war with another religion. This could be a civil type of war against Islam, perhaps, because there is tremendous tensions here in the UK and around the world with masses of people flocking in with different views of each other, and polarization on religious views, and also an increase in Christian views, perhaps more extremist they might become. We might end up with a civil war of a crusade. Those sort of things can happen, and often those ignorance of that has got to be dispersed, and the call for spiritual awakening is going to become greater and greater, and people are hungry for this. And like you said also, that the people are wanting to move on. They're thinking, this what needs to be my last lifetime. I'm getting out of here, So it's interesting. I think the spiritual thing is the critical thing. That's what the Nadis are about. The Nadis are there not to worry us about the future, but to say, look, now's the time, guys, to start looking to who you are, what you are. Wake up, wake up, wake up. That's what it's about.
Yes. Yes, I agree, Craig, because like I said, a lot of my friends are spiritual, and the Nadis for spiritual people are quite contrary. It talks about them really evolving spiritually, awakening, and helping others, doing a lot of healing or teaching or starting some sort of institute or doing organic farming or whatever. I mean, whatever their skill is. So it seems like the spiritual community is awakening, and a lot of the karmic debts that we've had as humanity will take effect on the planet, on people, and things like that. But there is a contradiction here, right? There is a dichotomy, because on one end, you have all these unsustainable systems of the pyramid system, that we have a pyramids of power, so to say, of all of this greed collapsing, whereas the spiritual community is building new things. I mean, these are come in the Nadis, not very concise, clear ways, but that's how I fit a jigsaw puzzle. When I hear Nadi recordings from so many people.
Yeah. And I think again, what's happening, I think you asked also in the Nadis about the coming of the Kalki avatar, which they said is not here yet, but it did say about the coming of the rishis. And it's interesting. I mean, you never know in your own life when you get an inner vision if it's coming from my unconscious mind or my imagination or not. But I had a very today, actually, it was earlier on before we did this, I had sat in meditation, very, very powerful feeling of somebody with me that was saying it's going to be all right, and they were telling me about Iran. And that's why I put that at the beginning of this video. And I also had a dream of that person last night telling me about Iran and that there's going to be problems there. And this is part perhaps new of the religious war too, because again, if things collapse in Iran, we could have refugees all over the place again, and the need for sorting all that sort of thing out. But the feeling was it would be all right in the end. Even the Middle East will be sorted in the end, and that we are capable of making this world a better place, despite the cards we're dealt and the Nadis are talking about here. Because the Nadi's not to make us all feel depressed. People think, sometimes, Craig, I watch your show and I'm not feeling depressed and I go away feeling all gloomy because they're hoping us to say everything's going to be fine, guys. But these are the cards we're dealt in order to help us towards our sadhana, to help us towards our awakening. And I think that's the thing to always remember with this, that what we're getting from this, what we're doing here, is learning to understand our full potential of human beings. And if the rishis are returning, the way they will return to us is the similar way to the way spirit guides come to us in many ways. They come to us with a power and an inner knowing sometimes with the full materialization of that person, just like happens in spiritualism, to give us absolute personal one-to-one proof. When the rishis come, they're omnipotent beings, so they can come to a person individually, independently, and give us inner guidance. They're not like figures that will be stood there talking to crowds, but they could be talking to all of us simultaneously through our inner understanding. This is the omnipresence of these higher beings. And I think that's one of the things that's hinted there. I think when I listen to you, I kind of listen behind the lines and I think they're telling us that we can open up to this. And if we open up to this, well, the world's going to be a much safer place.
I've got a comment on that, Craig, which is, when you speak from experience too, when you go deep, and this picks up on Vanita's point about aliens, but it also talks about higher beings. Sounds like a cliche, but that's the word we use these days, higher beings that communicate to us. When we meditate deeply, sometimes you think, and you go really deep, you think, where do these insights come from? Are they from my own mind? Where is this? Whether it's recognizing how interconnected everything is, how big and vast everything is, or how small you are, a speck of dust in the universe, whatever you might see in that state, which really becomes more and more a timeless state as you go deeper and deeper. I think some of these things might be communications of, can we say, higher beings or whatever you want to call them, that connect in a way to give you that, can I say, download, to use our own human word to describe this. But it's quite amazing. Either we go within and we see, but maybe there are other forces or beings out there that also help you to receive what you receive in a way,
Messages
right?
from the gods that are telling us we can become gods, I think.
Yeah, nice way to put it. But it's hard to explain this to someone who may not have meditation practice or some kind of spiritual practice to take them there. But it's really like a different state of being. And maybe, Craig, you did talk about Kriya Yoga. I practice Kriya Yoga as well. So maybe that establishes a bit of a understanding of maybe a little bit of where I'm coming from. If you practice a certain way or have certain spiritual practice, you access parts of the being in you
Well, in
that
the
is
Nadis,
beyond the
remember,
normal dimension of
a
being.
Nadi is also a channel, isn't it? So we have
It's also a channel.
so you
But
have
just
the channels of the
sharing,
spine.
So
we're coming to the end now. Vinita, was any last thoughts, any last words before we conclude today?
Yeah, I'm going to share this. It's personal, but I'll share it because it's quite crazy to think about this. So I had asked the Nadis in one of my previous prashnas, what is my relationship with the Nadis? How come I'm finding like so many leaves? It's so unusual. I mean, with this 5 prashnas, the 5 questions that I had 3 leaves found in like a span of like 10 days. What's going on? Literally, I find a leaf every week. So what's going on? So it gave me some hints, and it said, yes, you have a relationship with these siddhas and these rishis, and of course with Shiva as well. And you have been involved with the nadis. And it also mentioned in one Nadi leaf that that Rishi Agastya and Rishi Nandi are sort of like my gurus because I do hear their knowledge, when I'm meditating. And so it said, while you meditate, while you sleep, and when you're on pilgrimage, they're giving you knowledge, which I have experienced. So you've been associated with them. And, just this feeling that came to me because, it sort of awakened something within me when I realized if I was a disciple of Agastya, and if I was writing these, I was one of the disciples who was etching these messages, could it be that I etched some of these messages for one of my future lives, which could be this life?
Yeah, good
So
God.
some of these messages may have been etched by myself.
I thought exactly the same when I encountered mine. I thought, am I writing messages to my past? Because I've often thought to myself, what if I could write a message to my past and I could leave some sort of marker for the me that was before, And I think we all do that in some levels. Yeah, very interesting. Well, thanks for joining us today on the show. I hope you did enjoy that. Don't forget, Vinita's got a book coming out in due course. We're going to plug that on the show when it comes to it. Some of her details and about her her own YouTube channel are in the description of this video too. So go and have a look at her channel and follow that too. If you want to follow, there's a whole network of interesting people connecting together nowadays. Have a look at my book, Messages from the Universe. And if you enjoy this show, do please also become a patron. And patrons, some patrons, I won't, but everybody, I don't open it to everybody, but if you're really interested in coming on the show, you can also come on the show and chat as one of our questionnaires, one of the people that ask the questions in the show, and as your comments as well. That's selection from the patrons. So that's also in the description below. So thanks for joining us again. And also, if you really, really want to help us, also have a look at our foundation link and all about what we're trying to do to build a spiritual center. We're still working on this. It's taking a long time to get enough money together. So have a look. Are you someone that would like to donate to help us really get the message out for the world? Have a look at our links below, and maybe you could give a donation to our foundation. All there in the description. Anyway, see you soon. Thanks for joining us. Bye for now. Well, Jane and I are building a spiritual center in one of the most beautiful parts of Italy. It's a place where we can teach meditation, we can teach the development of mediumship, we can teach spiritual development, and through it and the media we'll have there, we can also reach out to the world through projects like this channel. Now, every penny that Jane and I have earned through our theatre demonstrations has gone straight into this fund, along with the support also of kind people like you that have helped contribute to it. We've also been able to help the poor in India with this fund. We're calling it the Hamilton Parker Foundation. It's a not-for-profit company at this stage, but it's given money, feeding families, supporting orphans, it's helped the disabled, and even given cows to destitute people and villagers in India. And we've helped people to really rebuild their lives with this through your help and what we've done through this. But also we're looking to build this spiritual center, to make a center a reality. So we need your help. And we particularly need help from very generous people, from businesses, for example, and from anyone with deep pockets who believes in creating something good for the future. So can you help us? If you can, if you want to find out more, have a look at the links below. You'll find out all about our mission.